SwiftUI offers a great API for searching in your application, and today I want to show you how to implement and use searchable, including search suggestion, how to do some more advanced things like programmatically dismissing search or knowing if the user is searching, showing different customization, where to place the search text field. For example, here on macOS, it usually is in the toolbar. I did add here some search suggestions. Maybe I want to search for something with chocolate, and I then update my search text field and filter my data to only show meals that include something with chocolate. When I dismiss, I again go back to showing all of the meals that I have here. So we're using the search text field to filter the meals names. On iOS, the same view looks like this. I have here a search text field with cards that are used. Now, this kind of search suggestions, you have quite a bit of control over. For example, if I again look for something with chocolate, I can filter this list. It's the same, but in this case, I'm showing here custom suggestions. Maybe I'm looking for something with chocolate. Typically, the search suggestions, need to go to another view, is shown on top of the main content. On macOS or on iPadOS and full screen, it's shown here as a menu. Let's see also how to do this, how the search suggestions are shown, how to show them, how to update them. I did upload this project on my GitHub. You can find a link in the description. The project is maybe not the best organized, but this is because I have so many different possibilities that how I could implement this with the logic of how to update things. So I put quite a bit of views in this project. This hopefully helps you to play with the different configuration for search to get really a feeling of how search works for your iOS or macOS apps. Now let's go and implement search in code. Okay, let's have a look at the data and the project that I prepared. This is a delivery app. So from the data, I have here a meal with a category attached to it, with a name, the location, ratings, other tags. This is just some very basic data. Then I did add here an image URL, and I'm actually taking the images from the supported files. So this is like 10 different images. I use the same images all over the place. And I have here one JSON with dummy data. So I'm actually here adding the image URL as the name of these files. Then I have the meal category. This is an enum. I have here 5 different cases of African American, Asian, European, and Ocean. Everything is codable because I'm getting this from my JSON. In the view model, I do have here an array of meals. That's the data I want to present. And I have an extra layer for loading this from the bundle in this case. So when I initialize this view model, I'm loading the sample data. Now in my view, I create here one instance of this view model as a state object. I use in a basic navigation element. I'm testing this either with NavigationStack, split view, or NavigationView. Because depending what you use, you have the search field in different areas. So we have a look at this. Then I use a list, very basic, with a meal card view. I did prepare a couple of cells just because I have these different navigation stacks, and on macOS you might want to use smaller cards than on the iPhone. Okay, going back, this is just my list with this navigation title. Now let's start to implement a search feature for this view. So I want to have a search text field on the top. When I enter something, I'm going to filter these meals, and I'm going to filter it by the meal name, the title here. So you can add a searchable modifier, and this expects a binding for string similar to a text field, because this is just a UI element, but you need to know the text that was entered. And I'm going to store this in my view model because here I already have my meals. If I also have the search terms, maybe I also add the advanced filtering options here. So I would also do the filtering of the meals here, keeping the logic nicely together. I'm in the view model, so this needs to be at published var search texts. This is a string, and the initial value is here empty. I can now use this in my view with a binding to the view model search text. This appears in this view, I only have here one view below the navigation title. Let's just quickly check this on Mac. For the newer Xcode, you're supposed to see the proper window. Doesn't work for me yet. So I would need to, if you want to see this on macOS, I need to run this. And here it doesn't show up. And I think it's because the position needs to be inside. That's a lot of these view modifiers you need to put in the navigation, one of the navigation views. So now I have this in the toolbar. The next thing I want to actually do is being able to filter I can now enter here something, but my list won't change. So we need to update the list here with the correct data. So I need to go again to my view model. We have to combine now the meals that I have and the search text field to show the correct updated data. So I'm creating here, for simplicity, there's a lot of ways of doing these data streams. I'm creating here a computed property, filtered meals. This is an array of meals. Now, when my search text is empty, I don't want to filter anything. I want to just return everything. So guard if search text field is not empty, only then we do the filtering, and otherwise I return here my meals, so all of the meals that we had before. So now here I can say I'm returning the meals array filter, and the way we are filtering this is by the meals name. I want to do this lowercase and uppercase, case insensitive, so I used lowercase contains, and I use the search text also lowercase, contains. Okay, now I should use this computed property, filtered meals, in my list. So here, for each, I use the view models filtered meals. Now when I enter something like tomato, you see it updates, and when I clear this text field, all of my full list is again shown. Another nice feature with search is that you can show the user suggestions of what to search for. They updated this a little bit with iOS 16. First I'm going to show you the older version and then the newer one. So you can use the searchable with text prompt and suggestions. As you see, this is deprecating. So if I use here the suggestions, this is then allowing me to enter in this closure the suggested views, the options that I want to show below the text field. Right now I have very simple data, so I'm going to add a couple of just an array of suggestions. Again, I do this in my view model. So here, this is suggestions array with a couple of the terms that I know I have with all my meals, like beef or avocado. Now I can use this as suggestions. So for each of my view models suggestions, this is an array of strings, so I need to use here ID, saying, just use self suggestion in. For each of the suggestions, I want to show a button, and when I press on the suggestion, I want to update my search text field. So this is a button with action and label. So the action would be then to say the view models search text becomes my suggestion. These are strings, and the label, this is shown as the suggestion. The suggestion text itself, and we can use here an icon like a bookmark. And now when I enter in the search, my search suggestions are shown. So this is the whole array I had, and when I tap, for example on chicken, my search is updated. Now as you see, it's still shown the whole suggestions. I could, instead of showing here this whole suggestions array, I could just show these suggestions once I enter something. So we can, similar to before, use the search text field to filter our suggestions and then only show static array suggestion and only show the one that fit my search query. Going here, I would then add a var filtered suggestions. This is an array of string, and if this is empty, I don't show any suggestions. If I have something in the search text, then I filter my suggestions. I probably also could have done this the opposite way. So now when I enter this, nothing happens, and I can say something with him, adding here something and then choosing this one. The thing that you see here is that I still see suggestions. Unfortunately, this is not the most convenient way of doing this. I could have also did the inverse with my filter to say, I always show here, I'm moving this the other way around. If I didn't enter anything in the search text field, then I show my suggestions, and otherwise I return an empty array. So this is a little bit of a different logic now. So now when I enter here, I press muffin, and then I update my search text field, I filter here my list, and I also don't show any more suggestions. If you want to work with the suggestions, because now it overlays everything, I'm going to show you another way of doing this a little bit later, where you just show them the suggestions in the very top part, so it doesn't show on top of everything. Now, just as an interesting side note, on larger screens, this is not shown as an overlay, it is shown like a menu. So here I don't have this problem. I can just say search for muffins. But this is the menu style on the iPad. And now if I look here on my Mac version, I have the search text field. Probably should resize this window in a way that it makes a little bit more sense. It also collapses if you go smaller. If I here tap now and enter my search text field, I get the list of these items, like I search for something with chocolate, and this updates. One thing that you see here is that I have to add a button. And they usually would expect to always have buttons in there because you want to select something from the list. So a shorter version of this is actually with the search completion modifier. So I am going to simply show a label or text. And then we add a search completion. And what you have to give here is what's the string that you want to use. So this is actually the suggestion. So basically what this does, it sets the value that I have here, the suggestions, on the search text field. Try again, I press here noodles, and now the noodles are entered here. This is the shorter version. It's always nicer to keep things organized. For iOS 16, they added a newer way of doing the suggestions in a separate view modifier. So I'm just going to do this in another view. So this is search suggestions with suggestions, and here I would enter then the same as I had before. This for each of showing all the suggestions. The search completion also work. I'm just going to add this here. The logic is still the same. So this is the newer modifier. And let's just check if you can still use the older suggestion modifier directly. This is soft deprecated, so there is no limit to this. Also, this is introduced for iOS 15, and then they updated it in iOS 16. Now, you already saw me talking about this overlay search suggestion or the menu style. And you have actually the possibility to customize this a little bit more. So this would be the example when you don't always want to show here the whole list. Maybe you just want to show it in a shorter version on iOS. How do we tweak this a little bit more? So this is another example. To make this a bit more interesting, I actually used here navigation split view. And the first view, then I added here this search text field, which you can see by pull to refresh. So the interesting one is now the search with suggestions visibility. So this is visible for content or menu. Content is the one that I said is I call this the overlay, or when it's hiding the main content. This is for iOS. So for example, I can say I actually want to hide this if it's usually shown as a content, and this is not supposed to go here. It has to go in the searchable. Okay, try again. Now when I enter something, before I had my search suggestions in there, but now it's not shown anymore. If I go back to visible, now it is shown. Okay, I go and hide this. The reason why they have this here with this for is that you could, for example, say, I'm only hiding this now when it's shown as content on the iPad, where it's shown as a menu. Okay, this is always a little bit different. It would be also shown as a content, and we are hiding this, and if it's in the sidebar. That's part of the problem why I always get confused with this searching APIs, because it's adapting in some situations, like, why is it suddenly doing this in this case? So I'm hoping by going through all of these edge cases also you get a better idea. Okay, now I have hidden my search suggestions on when they are showing over the main content, but I still want to show some suggestions. How do I do that? And for this, I want to show a little view or extra list here with the search suggestions. So inside my list, I want to add another view before, so here, where I can show the suggestions. I need to create a separate view. I need to again get the suggestions, which is in my view model, so that's why I have this. I again need to show my filtered suggestions, or however you want to do this logic. So here I would, again, similar to before, show the list with these buttons. Now this view I want to show in front of my cards. So this is custom with this view model. Okay, now I actually don't want to show this. I only want to show this list when I'm actually searching. So in this state, when I'm here entered, then I want to show this. So I need to hide this part when I'm searching. And you can use an environment property, which is searching, var is searching. And the other thing, what you can also do, because I only want to show this on macOS, is using here the search suggestion placement, var placement. This is the content or menu style. Okay, in this case, my logic is if I am searching and my placement is content, only then I'm showing this here, depending on the logic you have on the filtering and everything. Okay, now nothing is shown. This is good. When I enter, my list comes up. In this case, I would probably do this differently again. So only when I'm typing, I'm showing something. So I'm just going to go back in my view model. So I would change the logic in here, again to the opposite, to show an empty array if I didn't enter anything. And otherwise, I show this, I'm filtering this. Let's try this again. I am entering search. Nothing is shown because I said I don't want to show anything. Now I search and this hamburger comes up. I guess I would also need to then hide all of these suggestions. The logic gets a little bit more complicated of what do you want to show here in this list. We can also test this now for macOS. If I enter here something and I type, this menu comes up when I type. This is because I set my search suggestion in this way. In this case, you can also in the search suggestions here, because these ones are only shown on macOS, I could use on macOS all search suggestions. On an iOS I make here, or in compact mode actually, I make more filtered suggestions so I don't show too many. So then when I search here and I tap in the search text field, all of my options are shown in this menu, the search suggestions. When I tap one, automatically the menu is closed. So there's some default behavior already built in. You can do quite a lot with the suggestions. And for example, where would you actually get the suggestions from? I have something that I think a lot of people will look for, but you could also maybe keep track of the history of what the user were looking at, maybe the suggestions, the search terms you could show again the search terms he was looking at before and then just show them again. You have access to the state the user is in, if he's searching or not, how the search is displayed. And these properties are in the environment. So I had here the search suggestion placement and the searching. These only work when you try to access them from a sub-view that is inside of your search. So if I would have tried to access these environment properties one level higher, so in here, I wouldn't have had them, because this environment, the view that this view's environment doesn't know anything about searching. So that's why I had to create here a sub-view with these custom search things. Another example from the documentation or the WWDC presentations, when they introduced this is searching property, is if you want to show a different view when you're in the normal state, so when you show all of this data, or when you are in searching state. So in this case, I actually extracted the main search view here. And this is a list with the meals, an array of meals. I again have a navigation view with a custom meal search list view. And the reason why I again have to use this in a separate sub view is because of this environment property is searching, otherwise I can't properly use this. I know it's confusing because you need to stack things in each other. So in this view, as the main content, I'm using this meal list content view, the one I just showed you, which wants to have an array of meal. And on top of this content, I'm using an overlay. And I say, I only show this overlay if I'm actually in searching state and if I have something, a search term that the user has entered. Otherwise, I would just see the main content with all the meals. In order to actually see a little bit of a difference, I added here a text on top because the main thing, I use again the same list view, the content, only that now I pass in different meals. And this time I'm passing here these filtered meals. When you try this time, when I enter the search, nothing happens. And only now I am showing my search results. And you have here this little search text, search results that I added. So you really see now it's actually the overlay. When I cancel and this text field is emptied, I go back to my main content. And we see the full list. So now I showed you is searching, then the search type. And the next one is that you actually can programmatically dismiss the search. So I have here another example. It's basically, again, my meal search list view, showing all my meals with a search text. And now just as I use pretty much the same that you just saw, only that I added here a done button. So I went to, this is a very basic example. I just didn't really know when to do this, when I would want to programmatically dismiss the search. So when I press on this done button, this is just a basic example, which you might not want to do the same way. When I press on this done button, I want to programmatically dismiss my search so that we don't see here this search results part anymore. And again, similar to this is searching, I can now use another environment property, which is dismiss. Dismiss is for dismissing views. You can also dismiss a window. But I want to use the dismiss search var dismiss search. And then when I press on the done button, I can now call and execute dismiss search. Try again. I'm searching for a hamburger. And now I press here on done. And I leave the search. What also happens when you execute this is, again, the search text field is emptied. So everything is back to normal and we show the main content. Then, instead of maybe dismissing this view, I want to do something when I press here enter as the user. Maybe I want to do an extra, maybe you're just filtering the data that you have. And if the user press enter, you want to refresh and send a request to the server. Or you want to then actually dismiss this. So let's just do the next thing. Okay, I prepared here a separate view to make this a little bit easier. With any text fields, when you press enter, you can use the onSubmit modifier. And this one has another property of submit trigger. The default is text, so this is with a text field, and we can now use search. This means that the closure that I have here is only executed when I am pressing enter in the search text field. Coming from searchable, pressed enter. So trying, I need to use here my previews to see this print statement. So I type something and press enter, and now you see this press enter statement. Usually I would do here some fetch some data. As you can see, you have quite a bit of control and access how to do this searching. Okay, now I want to talk a little bit more about how we can customize the appearance of the search text field. Starting with here, the default placeholder for the text field is actually search. You can override this. Searchable has another property, which is prompt. Find your next meal. And this is then used in the search text field. Then the next thing is where this search text field is actually shown. Now I only have here NavigationStack with one list, so it's obviously shown in this list. But for example, if you have a navigation split view, so here I have a master and a detail, and the search text field is again shown on the first view. Let's just go to an iPad. I use landscape mode, and this is shown also in the sidebar. But if you want, you can also move this on the trailing toolbar. We can use the placement argument of searchable. So, for example, I can say sidebar, this is what you see now. In some configurations, the search text field is not shown when you first show this view. In order to see this, you need to pull, and only then the search text field is shown. If you want to override this and always want to show this, you can use the navigation bar drawer display mode always. Although I haven't figured out why it's sometimes shown and sometimes not, so this automatic behavior is a little bit a mystery. In order to show you the other placement configuration, it's a little bit better to understand where this goes. I actually need to use navigation split view with 3 columns. So here I have one view with categories, one with meals, and then one detail. I am going to go in iPad Escape. I actually here set the navigation split visibility to all. Otherwise it's just a little bit harder in the preview. I always want to see this. So I did add my searchable modifier around the whole navigation split view. And the search text field comes up in my second column. Now, in order to control this, one way is to change the position of the searchable modifier. For example, if I move it in the first column, so together with my sidebar, now the search text fields moves in my side column. It really depends what you're searching. Since this is my meal categories, it probably makes more sense in the sidebar. So we can move it in the sidebar if you want to make sure. So now it's in the content over here. If you move it to the detail, first it's not shown. This is because it's only attached to the detail, and right now I show the placeholder text. I select the meal. Now my detail comes up and I see the search text field. So this would be the configuration where I would want to search something in my detail. You can, I think, also add multiple of them. Let's try to add one. I use the same text property for my sidebar, and I have a different search text field for my detail view. If you don't like this moving the search text field around, I'm just going to take these ones out. Let's say I really want to insist of adding it around my navigation split view for organizing my code better. We can again use the placement. This would be sidebar, toolbar, navigation bar drawer. On iOS, this doesn't do anything. So let's just test this on macOS with the automatic one. And on macOS, you can actually use navigation bar drawer. So per default, the search text field comes up in the toolbar. Let's move this to sidebar. So now the search text field is in the sidebar. On macOS you have 2 options, either sidebar or toolbar. The whole process of moving this to the correct position can be challenging, especially if you want to have a cross-platform app. You also have to consider that depending on where you actually add your searching. So here, for example, if I add my search here, I would show a different view, because I guess if I search something, it would show different meal results in this view. And then your navigation split view would look differently, or the whole stack would change up quite a bit. So things can get a little bit complicated. To wrap up now on searchable, I showed you how to add the search text field, how to do the placements for different navigation styles, how to show the search results, mostly with lists, how to show search suggestions, filtered search suggestions, how to interact with the search, seeing when it's actually searching, how to dismiss programmatically, to see how the search suggestions are shown. Another cool thing, which is newer, they added this for iOS 16 and macOS 12, is using tokens. These, for example, are categories. So in my case, I have here meals with these tags. So for example, we have a coupon, a to-go or on sale tag. And I want to allow the user to filter by these categories. For example, you can say, oh, are you looking for something that is on sale? And just something with hamburger or something with chocolate. These tokens are like filtering. Before these tokens, you would want to do this, for example, with another picker. But now everything is nicely together in this one search text field. One thing to note is that you can't use search suggestions and tokens, at least because they use the same space here. If you don't have predefined tokens that you want to use, I can also use here something like a comma. And now I create custom tokens. For example, I'm looking for something with beef and noodles. This is a custom logic that I had to set up and dynamically in order to dynamically create new tokens. So I did use here, if any user processed on a comma, that I create a new token, but you can also do something completely different using enter. That's possible too. Additionally to search tokens, you can also add search scopes. This is more something that you are used to from Finder on macOS. For example, I have here my app, and in this case I only show the meals on the left side. When I enter here search, this is the search tokens. I can say hamburger. So this is the tokens. And in this case, I also added here the search scope. This is, for example, saying search in all meals, or I only want to have something American. That also is another way of adding a filtering mechanism. As you see, it's displayed below the toolbar above the detail view, similar to Finder. You would also have this kind of styling. On iOS, search scopes are shown as a picker, a segmented picker below the search text field. In this case, it's a little bit too much content. I'm not even sure if a lot of people would actually use it like this. For me personally, it makes more sense on macOS, especially if you have an app with a lot of data and you want to add filtering mechanisms. Search tokens and search scopes are very useful. If you want to learn more, have a look at the blog post that I'm linking in the description together with the project files. Don't forget to like this video if it was helpful. Until next time, happy coding!